So in that case, it seems that you're relatively free. You're relatively free to do, here's the thing, here's the key, gotta be a mature Christian. You're free to do what you know is going to help you prepare for Christmas the best. Because that's what the season of Advent's all about. When it comes to the season of Advent, it's a twofold reason, twofold purpose of Advent. One is it's to prepare, to get ourselves ready for the celebration of Christmas, to prepare ourselves to celebrate the first coming of Jesus Christ. So, question you can ask yourself, does listening to certain kinds of music help you prepare to celebrate on Christmas Day? You can say, does decorating your house prepare you to celebrate on that day and also in the whole season of Christmas? Now, sometimes what happens is people listen to so much Christmas music, they are so full of decorations and so full of cookies or whatever the thing is, that they're like, no, by the time Christmas, the actual celebration rolls around, I'm not prepared to actually enter into the celebration as best as possible. In that case, you get to be the judge. You get to be the one who says, oh, I need to cut back. I need to change some things. Again, remember, because the first reason, whatever, of Advent is to prepare ourselves for the celebration of Christmas, of Christ's first coming. So, again, music, decorating, whatever, if that helps you, great. If it doesn't help you, change. It's awesome. But I think there's even a deeper purpose for Advent, because it's twofold, as I said. One is to prepare ourselves for the celebration of the first coming of Jesus. That we commemorate it, we celebrate it on December 25th. But Advent is also a preparation for Christ's second coming. Think about that. Advent is preparation, a season where we get to prepare ourselves for the second coming of Jesus. Now, we have no idea when the second coming of Jesus is going to happen. Jesus himself says, you know neither the day nor the hour when the Son of Man will return, when he will return. And yet, we all know that the coming of Jesus will happen in our lifetime. What I mean by that is we recognize that the mortality rate for human beings continues to hover roughly around 100%, which means all of us are going to die. Whether it's Christ coming to the whole world at the end of time, or you going to Jesus at the end of your life, that's the second coming of Jesus for you personally.
The fact is, Jesus is interested in all of our thoughts. So John of the Cross says, one human thought alone is worth the whole universe. And so use it wisely.
Amazing.
You use it for the glory of God.
That's amazing.
You're right. Because why is it? Because it's the action of a rational creature, right?
Yes.
So
yeah, it reminds me. I love it when the saints do that. They'll say something hyperbolic that seems impossible, and then when you really think about it, actually, no, they're absolutely correct about that.
Yeah.
It's the truest thing. When St. Thomas says something like, the single human soul is more valuable than the entire created material universe, which is true, of course, because the single human soul is immortal, destined to be with God forever in glory, and so forth. The material cosmos will all pass away. But then St. John of the Cross, in his wisdom, he's very Thomistic, actually, in his theology, he zeroes down even more, not just the human soul, which is infinitely valuable, but even one human thought, because that is the act of the rational creature, which is man.
We're missing something right in front of us these next 29 days. In 29 days, we can be so busy, our lives can be so full, God can be so close and we don't even know it. And that's the truth. The truth is, God is not distant. The truth is, God is not far off. The truth is, He's closer than you think. And so that's our series for the next 4 weeks. That's what we're going to be focusing on. That God is closer than you think. For the next 29 days, we're highlighting this reality, this truth, that He is closer than you think. Because this is the series for Advent. Again, Advent is what? It's a time of preparation, right? It's preparing either to celebrate the first coming of Jesus in the Nativity, Christmas, or it's time preparing for the final coming of Jesus at the end of the world. Right? These are the two comings of Christ. The first coming of Christ at Christmas, and the final coming of Christ in glory at the end of time. But saints have always talked about there's this middle coming of Jesus. And this middle coming of Jesus is the fact that He continues to come to us now, that He continues to come to us in the Spirit, and He continues to come to us in the Eucharist. And so, yes, we're going to spend 29 days preparing to celebrate the first coming of Jesus and preparing to enter into the final coming of Jesus. But that's in the past and that's in the future. We want to live now. The only time we can live is now. The only place we can live is here. So we have to recognize that God is also now. God is also here, and God is closer than you think.
But I've gone back to the Desert Fathers, in fact, and John Cassian to look at what the ancient monks of the Egyptian desert had to say about the ordering of the thoughts and the origins of thoughts. And they get very deep into the importance of them. And what some of them end up with, at least, is that it's not that we want to it's not that we're going to completely stop our thought process. Saint Teresa of Avila says that. It says the mind is like a grinding mill. It's continually going, and sometimes it has a mind of its own in a sense. But the fathers will say all of your thoughts should be sort of like spokes around a hub. That is, even though they may stray a little bit here and there, they are all basically going around the same thing. We have our eyes and our heart fixed on one point. And even if they stray here and there, it doesn't really take us away substantially from that. One of the fathers mentions the building of a stone arch and the ancient method of building that, where you needed kind of like spokes and a hub around which the stones were fitted, and the more you put, the heavier and more sturdier it becomes. And he says your thoughts need to be like that, focused on a single point, and that needs to be God. And so if you are purified of all of your disorders and vain desires, then all the movements of your imagination, all the movements of your mind will be circling around God in some fashion. Okay, and that's a very hopeful image, and but it shows that our thoughts, they're not going to be purely linear.
Yes.
They do scatter a bit, or more than a bit. But if we're constantly orienting our heart back to the Lord and turning back to the Lord, then they're in some way they're always related to Him. Even when I falter, even if I'm going over here, I can. From wherever I end up, I can come back from that place and ask the Lord, how did I end up over there? Like, what was it about that thing that so captivated me?
And again, if we miss this over the next 29 days, we could miss everything because we don't know. That's why Jesus says we have to stay awake, because he's basically saying, you can't miss this. In these next 29 days, you can't miss this. You can't afford to. Again, at the same time, I realize people have said, but it's so busy, Father. You have no idea. We just said it is the busy season. If there's any busier time in people's lives, like across the board, I don't know what it is. Not only is this possibly a busy time, this also can be a really, really difficult time for so many people. And I get that. I completely understand that. But that's how life goes. That's just life. Life is busy. Life is difficult. But God is closer than you think. I first met Tom a few years ago when he was in the federal prison here in Duluth. And back in 2008, with the market crash, housing crash, everything, all the bubble, everything that went down, the housing schemes and Ponzi schemes, the biggest, most powerful people, they didn't go to jail. Many of them didn't. But the small people, the little guys, who maybe sometimes didn't even know what was going on, they got to be the scapegoats, and Tom was one of the scapegoats. And remember him saying, they could just say, throw him in prison, ruin his life, who cares? His reputation was destroyed. His family was devastated, obviously. And Tom said this, he said, that can happen to a person. He says, one walks away bitter and angry. Someone can walk away from the whole experience. Here you are, blamed for all these things that he, again, didn't necessarily have a ton of responsibility for, but blamed for it, reputation destroyed, family devastated, sent to federal prison for years and years. And he says, one walks away bitter and angry. And he said, I walked away with so much gratitude. He said, it cost me everything, but it's been worth every single tear. Why? Because he said, it gave me the opportunity to lay down my life. It gave me the opportunity to spend my time with Jesus and the Eucharist. And he said, it gave me the opportunity to raise up an army of adorers of Jesus and the Eucharist in the prison. So he described it, what life was like in the prison. That in the prison, they had a shared chapel. And that shared chapel was shared with 12 other religions, including Satanism. So they had this is a place where they would have mass, or also be a place where right next door where they have witchcraft things. But in that chapel, right in the loft above this chapel, they have a tabernacle. They have where Jesus is truly present in the Eucharist. And Tom said he spent, I think in the years he was in prison, he said he spent something like 15,000 hours with his arms wrapped around the tabernacle. His arms wrapped around Jesus, begging the Lord, Lord, raise up an army of adorers, people who know you're truly present here and will love you and will adore you. At one point, Tom told the story of this man named Rick. Rick had been a 40-year meth addict. Rick had been in the Hells Angels. Rick had lived a hard life. And in the Hells Angels, there was murder. There was all the other things that go on with Rick was a rough guy. He was a tough guy. He'd been in Leavenworth for 12 to 14 years. And when he got moved to Duluth, he was Tom's cellmate for 2 days as he was being processed. And then he moved on. But Rick at one point came up to Tom and he said, Tom, I've been watching you. Imagine if one of the former Hells Angels comes up and he says, I've been watching you. I'm like, okay, maybe not so much. Rick was about 62 years old at the time. Tom, I've been watching you. He says, I've been reading the Bible. He says, I've been going to Bible studies, bopping in and out of this one and that one. And I've been trying to get close to the Lord. But see, he says, and I've been studying the Bible because he'd been in jail for a long time reading the Bible. He said, I've been studying the Bible for a long time, but you have something, Tom, I've never seen before. He said, you have something, Tom, that I want. He said, how do I get it? And at this point, Tom realized, he said, okay, so even though Rick has been in jail for 12 to 14 years, he's getting out in 6 months. And so he's like, okay, I don't have any time to waste. And he even says this to Rick. He says, listen, Rick, I could take you through some Bible studies. I could teach you the catechism. I'm not going to do any of those things because it would just be a waste of my time. and I don't want you to waste my time. And he said, Rick looked at him. Again, this man who's lived a whole life, right? Here's Tom in prison for some money stuff. Here's another man in prison for way worse stuff. Other kinds of things, we'll say. He looks at him like he's crazy. And Tom says, listen, I don't want to waste my time just arguing over the Bible with you or talking points of the catechism with you. He said this, he said, if you really want to know what I have that you don't have, he says, how badly do you want to know this? How badly do you want this thing that I have? And Rick says, I want it so badly. He says, okay, then here's what you're going to do. He says, if you're willing to win this, if you're willing to do this thing, you're going to sit down and you're going to shut up. You're going to do what I say. Again, I can't believe that he said this, but that's whatever, however you talk to people, I don't do that. It's okay, fine. He said, okay, I want you to open your Bible to John chapter 6 in verse 51. What does it say? Rick opens his Bible, John chapter 6, verse 51. He says, read it to me. And the verse is, I'm the living bread that came down from heaven. He says, Rick, what does that mean? Rick says, I don't know. He says, that's your problem. You don't know what it means. So here's what you're going to do. Every day for the next 30 days, you're going to go into the chapel. And in that tabernacle, that is Jesus, the living bread come down from heaven. And every day for the next 30 days, you're going to spend 1 hour in silence in Jesus' presence. That's what I need you to do. And you're going to tell me when you do it, and I will look in, and I'll make sure you're there. And if you're not there one day, I'm done. You're done. I'm out. Are you willing to do this? And Rick was like, yes. He's like, okay. Now, the first time you do this, I'm going to be with you. And so they did this. They went to the chapel in front of Jesus in the Eucharist. He said, now, here's the thing, Rick. I need you to beg Jesus to reveal himself to you. That's what your prayer is. To beg Jesus, and not like, oh, this is kind of the prayer I'm supposed to pray. But if you want this change, you want this thing to happen in your life, to beg Jesus to reveal himself to you. So we led him through this prayer and said, okay, now for the next 30 days, 1 hour every single day. And again, he'd check on him and everything. Tom said on day 27, the compound of the federal prison is like a 90-acre compound with a lot of outdoor space. On day 27, he said, this 62-year-old man is running across the compound like an 8-year-old boy, sobbing, saying, where's Tom? Where's Tom? Where's Tom? He finds Tom, and he says, Tom, he revealed himself to me. Like he showed himself to me. And he didn't just like hold on to me like you shake someone's hand. He said he took my heart and he held my heart. I know him. After 27 days, Rick's life was completely changed. That year he entered into RCIA. Bishop Serba, before he passed, confirmed Rick, gave him First Holy Communion, brought him into the church. And Tom even shared a letter that Rick had written to him after the fact, after he got out. He said, my life has never been this great. He's never experienced such transformation, never experienced such freedom, never experienced such closeness with the Lord. That all happened in 27 days.
But the fathers will say all of your thoughts should be sort of like spokes around a hub. That is, even though they may stray a little bit here and there, they are all basically going around the same thing. We have our eyes and our heart fixed on one point. And even if they stray here and there, it doesn't really take us away substantially from that.